Hey everybody. Okay, so today I'm just going to do a little thing to get you introduced to a thing called variables. Okay, so we're going to dig a little game of just rock, paper, scissors. And I'll show you, it's very easy. Once you know what happens in real life, it's easy to translate that into code. So the first thing we want to do, well, what do we do when we play rock, paper, scissors? Well, we shake our fist, don't we? So I'm going to look under here and input, and I'm going to go to on shake, and I'm going to drag that out. Okay, well, what do we do? Well, this is the thing. So what we need to create something that's the equivalent of our hand, okay? And what we call this a variable. So this is something that saves a bit of information. Okay, so we can call it something like, so it could be a character in a game, or it could be anything like that. But we call a variable. It could even just be a number. But if we want to save it, we just call something as a variable, and that means we can change it throughout. And so if you click on this variable tab, there's a make variable here, and you click that. You can call it whatever you want. Now I'm just going to call it hand, because that's usually what we have for rock, paper, scissors. And as soon as you do that, you'll see these three options come up. Okay, so I've just called it hand, but I haven't said what it is, and that's what this first one will do. This will set it to a number, and that could change it then once I have it set. And this is just, we'll see what this is used for later. This is just for where we want to fill in pieces of the sort of jigsaw puzzle with it. So I'm going to pull this set hand out. I'm going to put it in there. So now this basically does what it says. So when I shake it, it'll set a hand to 0. Now that's not useful at all because we don't want our hand. We have three choices, don't we, for rock, paper, scissors. And so what I want to do is there should be three options in here, and we can do this. So if you look in this math section down here, and if we scroll down, we have this pick random 0 to 10. And if you pull that out, you can see it wants to go in there. It's the right shape, so it'll do it, but it'll automatically sort of try to jump into there. And this is what we want, because we don't really want to know the answer of rock, paper, scissors. Otherwise, it's not much of a game if you know what you're playing. Okay, and so now this gives a pick random, so numbers between 0 and 10, and that's way too many options. So we know we only have 3, don't we? Rock, paper, or scissors. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change this number. I can just type this in if I click on it. And I'm going to actually type in the number 2. Now you might think that should be to 3, but the way this works in programming is we usually count 0 as a number. So this actually has 3 options here, the number 0, the number 1, and the number 2. Okay, so they are 3 options. If we put in a 3 here, there'd actually be 4 possible choices. Now you could do 1 to 3, that's perfectly fine, but if we're going from 0, we need to go from 0 to 2. Okay, so that means when we shake this will be a little button here. When we get back into the classroom, we can do this in real life. It'll create this hand variable and it'll set it to some number between 0 and 2. And that's fine, but we sort of need to know what it is. And then if we want to do that, well, we go into this down here, you can see logic. And here, these first ones are called conditionals. And these work just like English. I'm going to drag that first one out. And I'm going to stick it. You can see the way it just sort of jumps in there. These work just like English, so these are just like if statements in English. And this says if true, then it'll do whatever is in here, but this true is not really that useful for us. Usually we want things that have a comparison when we say if she's sitting, go over there, or if she's standing, come over here, something like that. So it's if something, then something. And we call these conditionals. So if we look in the logic, or we can go down here, and these are comparison statements. So these are really useful, and this is usually what we want here. So I'm going to drag one of these out, and you can see it'll just jump over that true. And now what we want, well, this says if 0 is equal to 0. And of course it always is. But we want to be a bit more specific. So we want to know if we've set our hand between 0 and 2. Well, say we want 0 to be a rock. Then we know if our hand is 0, we want it to show a picture of a rock. Or if this number comes up 1, well, that's going to be paper, and we want to show paper, and that's what we're going to use this if statement and this comparison for. So if you remember earlier, in the variables tab, we had this little hand with these little circular edges, and these are perfect. So if you see, that'll just jump right in there. And now we know if our hand is equal to 0, then whatever's going to happen in here is going to be true. And well, that's 3 of the options. So our hand could be 0, it can be 1, or it can be 2. And we said if the hand was 0, well then that's going to be rock, wasn't it? So if our hand is equal to 0, what we want to do is we want to show a picture of a rock. So you look under basic, and here's a show LEDs. And I would do, oh god, I'm going to try and draw a picture of a rock, I suppose. Well, I know that I'm going to have to do paper as well, so I don't really want it to look the same as paper. Let's say that's a weird looking rock, but that'll just have to do. Or maybe we'll get rid of that one. Okay, so we'll say that that's a rock. So now, if we shake it, and it becomes a rock, it should show that picture. Okay, but that's not the other option. Well, it could also be paper, and it could also be scissors. So what we can do is we can do a little bit of a cheat here. And if you go over here and you click on this, that's a right click for this, you can see a thing called duplicate. And this is really, really useful. Okay, so in programming and stuff, once you do something once, we never do it again. We just copy and paste. And if I get this, and now I want to make sure that that's below the other if statement, and you can see it'll just jump in. Now, well, we have if hand is equal to 0, but we already did this. Now we just want it to be 1, because that's the next option. And then I want it to be paper, so I'm just going to change these pictures until it looks like a sheet of paper. Okay, and then we've got one more final option, and that will be for, if I again right click and I'll duplicate this, I'll put it directly under, make sure it's underneath it now, because you don't want it inside it. It has to be underneath it. And that will be, our final option will be 2, and that will be scissors. So let's see if I can figure out what a scissors looks like. Okay, that sort of looks like a scissors, doesn't it? Yeah, relatively. Okay, so now we have our 3 options. So we can see, we can even test this over here. If I shake and pretend about it shake, see some will come up with scissors there, and if I shake it again, oh, that's a rock, scissors, paper. And so it should come up randomly with some, and sometimes it'll appear like it doesn't change if you get the same one twice. But each time you can do that, you can do a shake. So that's basically your side of the paper, scissors, rock. But we can do a little bit more. It'd be much more fun if we could get in the classes to do it, but I'm going to show you what we do anyway. So if we want to play this with someone else, well, what we do is we go into our basic and we click this on start. Okay, and in here what we want to do is we want to set a radio group. So if you click in your radio, you have a set radio group, and this is basically like an FM channel. So the way you'd have different radio stations and different things, so 98 FM or East Coast Radio or whatever, FM 104, whatever these are, they all just come on a specific number, and if you're not in the right number, then you won't hear anything that's on that, or you won't, if you send anything along that, nothing that's receiving that will hear it. So that's what this is, and you can pick whatever number you want. I'm just going to stick in 20, but it wouldn't really matter. And so if we were around other people, you would pick whichever your friend has, and you'd both just go on the same radio group, and that means you can transmit information back and forth between them. Okay, so now we've got that set. Now what I want to do is, we've shaken this, when we've done all this, what we want to do is we want to send our result to someone else. So if we look in our radio, and then I'm going to say send radio, or radio send number, and if I stick this at the very end, that means after we shake it, it's gonna send whatever number we have. So that'll have picked a hand, so that would have been, once it does this set hand to, it's going to pick it hand as a number, and down, well, we want to send then the number that's the hand. Okay, so if we look back in our variables, we have this again, and I'm just going to throw that in there. So now it'll send whatever number we have, so people can know that we can't cheat, basically. And what we want to do, well, we know we're going to be playing this with someone else, and they're going to be doing exactly the same. So what we want to do is we want to see what they got. Okay, and so when we've shaken it, our thing comes up, but we need something else to come up when they do. So if we look under here at input, we're going to have an on button A pressed. Oops, I'm going to pull that out. That means when I press this button, I'm going to find out whatever they got for their rock, paper, scissors. And all we want to do then, if we go into radio again, we're going to have the on radio received. Yeah, on radio received number. So if I pull this out, I should have had a bit more space. Hold on, I'll do that one down the bottom. On radio received. So what we're going to know is if you look, we'll have sent out a number. That'll be called a hand. And this will be received by the other person. And it'll come in as a received number. Well, we need to store that as a variable again. Okay, so if we look in a variable, we're going to need to make a new one because the hand is ours. So we'll say maybe hand for player 2. You can call it whatever you want, but that's just what I'm going to call it. And if we do that OK, it'll jump up and give us another few options here. So if we look at this, like what we did to our first one when we set our own hand, we're going to put that in here and we're going to set the player hand. But this time we don't want to pick what it is. Here we were picking it. We want them to tell us what it is. And if you look here, there's this little received number. You can actually click on this and copy that, and it'll just jump in there. And now whatever number that we receive on the radio, it'll call that the hand player 2. Okay. Now, so what we want to do is we want to show these. Well, we already sort of have most of the work done here. So what I want to do is I'm going to duplicate this if. And we're going to put that in. And so when we see, well, this is our hand, we don't want that. So if I actually click the drop down menu, you'll see this is hand player 2. And that's what we want. So now if they got 0, it'll show this. And that's perfect. So now we can see what they've got. And again, I'm just going to duplicate these for the rest of these. So I'm going to copy that one, stick it in there, and then change it from what we got to what they got. And finally, for the third one, duplicate it, stick it under there, do that. Okay, so let's see if I can move all of this. Oh no, sorry. Okay, so that's all I did. I just copied and pasted and we sort of have it all. So now when it's on button A pressed, it's if they got 0, well that means they would have got a rock. They'll show this picture. Okay, and if they got 1, they got paper, it'll show this. So we can test over here if this is going to work. And if we press shake on our button, well, it shows that we got a rock and it brings up the other one here. And well, what did they get? Well, we have to shake theirs. So now we shake theirs. They got a scissors. So if we want to see what they got, well, we press A. Oh, that should have worked. I must have done. Oh, look, sorry. Down at the bottom, I forgot to change this one. It should have been hand player 2. Okay. And then if we press, hold on, we're going to have to start again. Okay, so if we shake it, we get a rock. They shake theirs. They get paper. And then if we want to check what they have, well, if we press that, we see paper. And if they want to check what we have, they press A and see rock. Okay, so that's a little introduction to both variables and how to use the radios. If you have any problems, I'll be in the Google Classroom for the full length of the class. Good luck.